Okay, I want to share with you some. We started speaking about Bina last week, and I'm going to go back to to the beginning of the Sefer. Some very deep ideas here about Bina. Two very, very big Kedushin that I want to share with you tonight, and I think it can make a very big difference in El. So just a quick review. Anybody who doesn't know about Chabad? So there's Chochma, Bina, and Das. Right? The Gra explains Chochma is the information, like mufshat. Just you read a pasuk in Mishle, right? Lakshiv l'chochma oznecha tata libecha l'tfuna. That's chochma, right? We don't know anything. We could maybe translate the words. We don't know any of the depth of that yet. That's called chochma. When you start trying to extrapolate insight, you look at commentators, perushim. That's called bina. And das is when you take like many explanations and put them all together and try to come out with some sort of understanding of how you're supposed to change your life, or just one explanation. You think that's really speaks to me. I'm going to incorporate that in my life. That's called das. And das, of course, is also Eitzah. Das is really integration. So how do we get to integration? Especially in El, we're coming towards Rosh Hashanah, Aseres Mitzvah, Yom Kippur. I'm sorry, we're in Perek Beis, Pasuk Beis. Perek Beis was Beis. That was just an introduction. So we really want to know how do we come to integration. That's one question we want to know. And then, like, what is Das all about? Das is all about. Chachma we can understand, Bina we can understand, but what is Das? Okay, so let's try to get there tonight in these two psukim, maybe three. Lahakshiv l'chachma oznecha, tate libecha l'tuna. Now, the lashon hakshava, I was actually just asked to join a website called Hakshiva, and it's like for people who really need to be listened to. And I got my first question, and this person really needed to be listened to. But it's an intense listening. Lakshiva is intense listening. So if you really want to understand the Chokhmah and get to Bina, the next level, you have to listen to it really with active listening. I think that's what they call it in English. No, am I right? Active listening? That's like really when you put your whole self into it. So, Lahakshiv the Chokhmah oznecha, which is interesting. Like how else do you listen to something? Okay. Tata libech l'tfuna. Right? So we have two questions over here. Number one, what's tfuna? It's using a different expression than bina. And then what does it mean to be tate libecha? Tate is not like tati, right? Tate means to lean your heart towards tfuna. So how do you do that? So let's see what the Gra says here. Just 1 second. Right. Okay. So, right? When you learn from a sefer, right? The Gra is our teacher. The Gra is here, by the way. Whenever you give a shir and you learn the Torah of a great deceased tzaddik, he comes and he listens. So the Gra is teaching us Torah. So Chacham was Masha Adam Makabel Mirabo, and I'm conduit to give over the Gra's Torah. So he's explaining Lahakshiv here. What does it mean, active listening? I believe it's from the word Lahakshiv, although maybe that's the Chiddush of Oznecha, means to accept it. So it seems like it's coming from the word Oznecha. I was right, because that's the only word that's the same, right? The pasuk says Lahakshiv Chacham Oznecha, and he's saying Asuk Oznecha Kafrochas. So it sounds like the word Ozen, which is really superfluous, because of course you listen with your ears, right? We once learned here from the Gra, Uni Zor, he says your ears and your heart are your two best friends, three best friends actually, because with ears you hear and your heart you can integrate. So that's the first thing. It means l'kabel. That's the first part. Lahakshav l'chachma aznecha means to makabel l'chachma. But the thing is that, as we said in the beginning, when it's chachma, you can't really relate to it so much because Kohelet said, "Amal l'chachma rechok mimeni." It's very rachok, because like the Vilna Gaon said that on every pasuk in Shir Hashem he could write 150 perushim. Just like he didn't have the time for it. He wrote 2 perushim on Shir Hashem. And probably, if you would work on it You could write an infinite number of explanations in every pasuk, and that's all including the chachma. So the chachma is too big for us. We need the bina to break it down. So how do we do that? And so what does it mean we're makabel the chachma? So let's try to get more clarity on that. Okay, tata libecha l'tfuna. Milas tfuna, who bein b'chachma bein b'bina. So there's a concept called tfuna. Reb always used to say, tfuna is when you give over the chachma, you give over the bina, you explain it, you clarify it, right? So it's the bina, the chachma or the bina in its clearest states. That's called tfuna. Kasher yavna dava al buriyav, or nikra tfuna, right? Now it just happens to me, my chavrusa's wife had an operation today, so I had the morning to prepare this, and I spent many, many hours on it, and I think I have a lot of clarity, and therefore hopefully I'll be able to say it clear. Right? If I was just looking at it for the first time, I wouldn't really know what's going on. The more time you put into it, the more you think about it, and we'll see from the Gra, the more you read it, right? This next pasuk, Kim Labina Tikra, right? The Mefarshim say, the Gra doesn't say it, I don't believe. 1 second, does he say it? He says you get Bina by reading it. Yeah, it's all good. You get Bina by reading it. When you read something, like it's locked in there. It's like how do you say that? It's under the surface. The Bina is there. When you read it, I once asked my Rosh Yeshiva, Mr. Kushlevsky, he would say very deep shir in Gemara and Rishonim. I said, like, how did I read the same thing? I didn't see it. He said, yeah, well, I read it 100 times, and it's like the 5,000th time that I read it, because right now I read it 100 times. So every time you read something, you get more and more depth. In fact, the Vilna Gaon had a small yeshiva, a group of people who learned with him, and the test to get into yeshiva was he would ask you to read something, and then he asked you to read it again, and again, and again, and again, like 100 times. And if after 100 times you had the same excitement about it, then you were accepted. You didn't have to be the biggest genius, but you had to understand that clarity. And Rav Chaim Volozhin had a brother. His name was Rav Zelma Volozhin. He was a big Talmud Chacham and Gaon, and they said he was bigger than Rav Chaim Volozhin. He would, before he did any mitzvah, he would go through the entire Torah and review every single thing about that mitzvah. And he said he would chazer things thousands and thousands of times, right? And every time you review it, you get more depths. So we'll come to that. But meanwhile, he says that which you should turn your heart to is the tefuna, right? Because somebody said once, he said to me, Rabbi Charles, I can't come close to your shiur because I understand them. I only like to go to shiur they don't understand. And it's very in vogue today because people like these hear these very high ideas. They feel if they understand it, it must be too simple. If they don't understand it, so that's good. I know my Rebbe brother was very against that. And that's what the Gra is really saying here. The more you understand the idea, the more you're able to integrate it. And that's really the goal. So we're looking for tuna. You're looking for someone who could really explain things very clearly and could go in. Okay, that's Kabbalah a little bit. You have to tilt your heart. Kialev maven. L'kach amar titali bechel tuna. V'atfuna shel chachma. L'havin adam shekibo miraba al buriyav mashalibo rabo. It's a very, very deep idea I'm about to tell you. I never understood in my life, only because I read this many times, like the Gra recommended. But the Gra is saying like this: what is a tfuna? How do you get the tfuna into your heart? You have two people. They come to a shiur. One person comes to a shiur and they leave changed, a different person. So the idea went in, and their whole life has been changed. Yeah, and one person leaves and like nothing. It just went in one ear out the other. How do you get the chokhmah into your heart that it stays there? Right, another integration. So the Gra is revealing the secret right now. It's really a secret here, right? You have to be. That's what Shlomo says. You have to be tita libechel tfuna. You have to be mata leiv. What does that mean? V'hi atfuna shel chokhmah. V'hainu lahavra davar sheyikabel mirabosav al buriyav mash b'leiv rab. Now, this was really bothering me. Let's say, maybe I understand this a little better than people here because I've learned it before. I learned the whole sefer many times, and I worked a few hours on it today, so I understand it better. So I have things in my lave right now that other people don't have, and I can't really say it all because some of it is just beyond words, and some of it is like implied. A person has to really be connected to what's being said in order to get it, right? There's something that's belev rabo. So if it's belev rabo, how do I get it? Yeah. So the Gra is saying this idea as follows: in the tfuna, it's there, but it's just hidden, right? In other words, just like in the chokhmah you have bina, in the tfuna you have more than meets the eye. There's more than meets the eye, and if you listen carefully, you'll understand what more than meets the eye. And that was what the teacher had in mind. And when he expresses it, again, the tfuna is the bina in its clearest state. So what's the difference between one sentence of bina that one person says, and he just worked on it for 5 minutes, and somebody worked on it for 3 hours? They're saying the same exact words, but one is bina, one is tfuna. The difference is that in the lave of the person saying it, there's more understanding. And that Havanas Alev goes into the Bina, right? Into the Bina, right? Let's say I tell you, right, the goal is to come to Bina. And Bina, tshuva really is Bina. Because tshuva, you have to search your ways and understand and know what you did wrong and know how to fix it. It's really Bina. But what's the difference if I tell you that coming from a perspective of Bina, means just I did it very quickly and said it, or I'm coming from a perspective of Tfuna, which means I worked a very long time, and in my lave I have ideas which are being incorporated into the Tfuna. When you hear the Tfuna, you're actually hearing what's in my lave, right? So I want to explain to you as follows. That's what I think the Gra means. The way you get Bina into your lave, which is Tfuna, is because if you can attach yourself to that aspect of the tfuna, which is belev rabo, so that's like the lave aspect of it, right? There's a element of every bina or tfuna, which is, let's use labedik, right? Labedik. That's kind of like it's trying to your lave. I think actually labedik. I think it means like lave, but it's really labedik, right? Because it's connected with the lave. And if you can connect yourself to that part of the tfuna, the part which I'm not saying, which I understand because I worked a long time at it, if you can attach yourself to that, al burya mashli rabu, then it'll go into your lave as well, right? Because that is the part that I was able to connect to, that I got it somehow into my lave, yeah? And if you can hear that, it'll go into your lave, and that'll integrate it, yeah? That's integrated. And that's really critical, because you can hear something and it won't go into your lave. In order to get into your lave, we'll read the Gra again. V'hu atfuna shel chachma, l'hainu l'havin adavar she'kavan rabosav, al buryav ma shebelev rabo. You were not only able to connect to the information being said, but you're able to connect to that deeper understanding that the Rav or the Gra had, yeah, or Shlomo Melech had. Really, you're hitting this really third hand, right? That Shlomo Melech, said it, and the Gra is explaining what Shlomo Melech says. I'm saying what the Gra is saying, right? Okay, but I have maybe the Alev, right? The other two are not alive anymore, so Lei Rabo. But if I understand what the Gra is saying and what the Shlomo Melech is saying, so there's something in my heart that is becoming connected with this Bina and Tuna. And if you're able to connect to that aspect, then it can go into your lave as well, and it becomes part of you, right? And this is a really incredible thing, because that's the goal. You come from a shiur, you don't just want to close the book and go home and that's finished. You want to be a different person. You want to have changed from as a result. And the way to change is to connect yourself to the tfuna. And that tfuna, listen, I for 2 years I wrote up the Chumash of Rav Sternbach, and it was very hard to hear him. He was in shul. He would speak very softly. I would literally go like this, because that's the only way I could hear it. And he would tell me like how did you? I would ask him questions afterwards, and then I would write things even that he hadn't written, yeah, because I would really work very hard to understand what he meant, right? Because for him it's so pashut, he didn't even write it. It's believe Rabo. But for the person listening, if you could connect to those like subtle underpinnings of the Bina, you know, which is called tuna, then it will become part of you, right? Usually, by the way, it's usually because every single person has a slightly different understanding of what's being said. There's a story with Or Samech. You heard of Or Samech? Or Samech, he was Rav Meir Vidvinsk. The yeshiva Or Samech is named after him. He was a very big Talmud Chacham. He made a Kabbalah, listen to this, to learn 18 hours a day for 18 years. Wow. Every single day, including Yom Kippur, Tisha B'Av, 18 hours, right? So that means he had 6 hours a day to sleep, daven, eat. He probably wasn't like spending so much time on these activities. You know, maybe he ate when he learned, maybe he slept when he learned. I don't know. So I don't know. But anyway, so the Or Samech once gave a shir, and after the shir, he asked 3 of his talmidim to repeat back what he said, and all 3 said different things. He said, "I meant all those 3 things, and I meant other things as well." Right? So there's always like what the words say on a simple level, and then what the Rav means. And see, everyone has their different perspective. And if you're able to use your unique perspective to get something from, to like, to, what's the right word, to link in to something that the Rav is implying but not actually saying, that's called tfuna. And that aspect, you're like getting into the lave part of what's being said. There's the part which is able to get it into lave and it will go into your lave. And once it's in your lave, then it's you. Then it becomes you. And that's an incredible thing because that's integration is really the goal. The goal is really integration. So that's one thing to be said tonight. Okay. Is that clear? Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
To think about.
You're trying to think, right. But you really have to think about it. That's what he's saying. He says, to understand it, and it means you listen to it, say, how does that speak to me? Right? That's big. It's interesting. Sometimes I've said shirim, and someone will say, that's a great shir. And they'll tell me something back. I said, I remember I said that even. But like that person needs to hear that thing. And, Puk, they're awake at that moment. They woke up from their slumber, the whirlwind. And they connected to that, So that's Lahavina Davar Shikar Rabosov Alburi of Basha B'Leiv Rabo. That's what I believe that the Gra means here. Okay. So let's see the next pasuk here. So Ki'im Labina Tikra, Latuna Titen Kolech. So we said Bina comes from reading it. I mentioned Rav Shiva hundreds and hundreds of times he reads it, and that helps him to get. Because the truth is like this. It's kind of like onion is not, but in understanding, there's many, many layers. Yeah, until you get to like the depth of something. We spoke last week about the Mayim Amukim, Eitz of Levish. I gave you the story about the beach with my grandchildren. I was digging and digging and digging for like an hour. They said they wanted to build a mikvah, right? I said, great. And so they gave me the shovel, and then they went away. So I'm like digging for an hour, and finally I hit water. I said, wow, that's Mayim Amukim, Eitz of Levish. Every time you like dig another, you get rid of some more dirt, then you get eitz in water. So it's in understanding as well. Every time you like peel another layer off, you have a deeper level, and that's ki'im labina tikra. Every time you read a statement from the Torah, from Chazal, you're like taking another layer off, and you're getting to more depth. So bina hua habanas davar mitok davar. It's insight. Ulavan davar mitok davar sarich likrosos lapeh. That's how you get it. It's there. You read it, and then you access it, you connect to it by reading it. Okay. It's there in the Chachma. And you just have to access it, and you access it by reading it. Right? And look, if you learn, let's say, Chumash Rashi, or Ramban, or Ibn Ezra, or anybody, any parish, when you read what they said, and then you read the pasuk again, you'll see that that's how they read the pasuk. Yeah? So their reading of the pasuk brought them to Bina. It brought them to Bina, right? And that's by reading it. You read it over and over and over again. And by the way, I said here once an Eitzah, which I think is a really amazing Eitzah is that every single person should have a pasuk. And when you're in the streets, you're just walking along, you could say that pasuk, right? And my favorite pasuk is Ein Omer Bado. And a number of times in my life, I've been in really, I told you about my story about Mr. Hanapi, I won't go through that one again. But I sat there for 3 hours. You should know by the end of those 3 hours, I had a much deeper understanding of this pasuk. And I was really I want to get out of here already. This is too much. All I want is my wife to do that. So but every time I said it, I felt I connected it to more. And look, it's a very deep pasuk. It means basically nothing exists except for Hashem. And at Har Sinai, Klal Yisrael was able to connect to the fact that nothing exists except for Hashem. And when nothing exists except Hashem, then even Mishle doesn't exist. And especially, I told you, room 17, there was this lady with bulging muscles, Golani, and she said, we're going to call the police. I said, call the police and tell them you won't give me my Tudat because the pictures weren't new enough. Anyway, but I got to the point where I really believed that there is nothing except Hashem. And then Chaim says, when you get to that point, then there is nothing else, right? Like when I was being choked on the beaches of Brazil, so the thought came into my head, and it was easier at that point because I felt like I was one step away from death. Either you believe that nothing else exists or you die, and they just ran away. So that's really good thing to keep in your back pocket. One pasuk. So that's one mile is that Eino Mavado protects you. But another mile is that every time you say it, you'll come to a clear recognition that there really is nothing else except for Hashem. And I was just saying before the shir, I was davening tonight in shul, and when I had to use the restroom, I got back. There was a very chashuv person there. He was wearing very, very chashuv clothes, and I was standing I was standing I don't know. He was over here, I was over here, and I was just davening regularly. In the middle of my Shemona Esrei, I suddenly feel like this. He just shoves me, and I'm like, what was that all about? And I realized he thought I was davening too loud. So I think I was davening just as loud as him. He was also you don't have to die. You're supposed to hear, by the way, when you daven Shemona Esrei, you're supposed to hear it. So it's whispering, but okay. And then he kept banging, So I wanted to shove him also, but I said, look, I'm giving you Shana Mishle. Let's be careful. I can't be hypocritical. Yeah. But why did I bring that up? Because I thought, ain't no. That was a push on Hashem, right? It's a push on Hashem. It was in a sign. It's a sign. The Rambam says the greatest moment of his life was someone publicly humiliated him, and he was so happy because he realized it's just me and Hashem. This person doesn't matter, And I said, this guy next to me, he's really, really hush my clothes, but they're completely useless because he's a jerk, why is he pushing me in the mushroom? Right? I was gonna tell I've been davening for 50 years and no one ever pushed me in the mushroom before. What's that all about? Anyway, he had a bad day, maybe his wife is doesn't give him breakfast. But the point is this. The point is that the way you come to Bina is by reading it again and again and again. And he says, because it's nichlels b'chachma. The chachma is the abstract idea, and by reading it, you peel away another layer, another layer, another layer, until you get to very, very deep ideas. You wouldn't notice it before. When you read it again, what do they call it? A second look? What do they call that? Refocus, it's a refocus. You see things you didn't see before. Okay. Zekim Bina tikra. L'tfuna titen kolech. Ki kamoshi is tfuna b'chacham, like we just said above, and that was understanding what's believed rabbo. L'havin ha'chachma aburiyav. Kain is tfuna b'bina. L'havin davar ha'bina aburiyav. Eich tluya zu ha'bina tikdega shel chachma. And he's going to give it. This is arichas here. I'm not going to go through it. He has a long example here. Okay. Okay, I'm going right to the last line after number 14. Okay, no, the last line after number 13. Vu mitchaberes im tfuna shel chachma. ומחמד שלזה צריך הגיע יוסר מהתבונה של החוכמה, כי אם יבן זוס התבונה, אז יבן גם התבונה של החוכמה. כי התבונה של החוכמה גנוזה בתוך התבונה של הבינה. לכן בתבונה של החוכמה אמר ליבך, וכאן קולך, כי זה גילוי הלב. Right? So very interesting. In the last pasuk we said that if you listen very carefully to a shir, what the Rav is saying, you'll be able to detect that part of the chachma which went into the Rav's slave, and when you hear that and you understand it, it will go into your slave. But now we're saying that's called tfuna of chachma. But tfuna bina is even more. Tfuna bina is l'tfuna titein kolech. When it was in your heart, okay, it's there, but it's hidden. It's not so easy to access it. But if you really understand the bina really, really well, then it's bekolech, right? Kizeh gilui halev. Not only it'll be in your heart, but you'll be able to express it also. Look at note number 16 on the bottom. Oh no, that's Kabbalah. Okay, we'll have to leave it for now. We'll leave this out. Okay, we'll leave it for now. But this is something really, really important for El and Rosh Hashanah, right? Because look, we all have things that we have to work on, right? And the only way you could ever change is really if Chachma and Bina go into your heart. Otherwise, you don't change, right? The only way for a person to change, because Chachma and Bina really is Kivayachal, if we could say that, it's the Or of Hashem himself. It's Hashem's light. The Torah, it says in the Gemara in Shabbos, says, how do we know the idea of an acronym? So we learn it out. Anyone know where we know acronyms from? Where? No, that's what an acronym is. But where do we learn that such thing as an acronym? So the Gemara says we learn it from the word Anochi. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. What is an acronym for? Anyone know? It's a hard one. It means Ana Nafshi Ksiva Yahavis. I gave my nefesh into the writing. I gave my nefesh into writing. Ana, I, Nafshi, my nefesh of Hashem. Ksiva, writing, Yahavis given over to you. Hashem gives himself over to us through the Torah. It's an incredible idea. Chazal say that on the first 36 hours of creation, there was a tremendous light in the world, or goodness. And Hashem said, it's not proper that the Rishonim will benefit from this. He took it and he hid it. Where did he hid it? He hid it in the lights of the Torah, in the letters of the Torah. Right? I gave a share back today on the Kabbalistic understanding of Parshat Aman. Because every letter of the Torah has 4 parts to it. Right? And this is really Kabbalah. What? But there's 4 aspects of letter. There's the letter itself, then there's the crown, then there's the vowel, and then there's the notes. Right? So the Zohar says that the crown of the Torah is like an antenna. The letter itself is a receptacle, it's a kli, and the crown is like an antenna, and the dot is like also further receptacle, and the kol is also. So when you read letters of the Torah, so what you're doing is you're creating a receptacle. You're going like this. If you ever go to shul and you watch the men during Birkas Kohanim, some people go, it's a minute to go like that. And the reason is because you're accepting the blessing, kilo. It's like you're making a vessel for the blessing to go into. Every single letter is the vessel for the blessing to go into. And Rav Yaakov Hill told me something like incredible, is that when a person changes their name, like they're basically killing themselves. Because the letters of a person's name, all the blessing from Shemayim comes down into the letters of your name. And when you change your name, you're totally different. It works totally differently. That's what it means. So,
get told to change the name.
Yeah, sometimes he told me 10 times he changed names for me, and every time I saw like unbelievable things. And now he gave me smicha now in changing names with alcohol. I'm allowed to change names, but I did it twice so far, and nothing happened. So I guess I have to work on it. But there's a date. He told me a girl after 13 years dating should add a name. That's what he told me, right? And so, listen to this one. There was a girl, she was calling me. So I said to me, it's 13 years, you have to add a name. So she had a name. 2 days later, she goes on a date. The guy said, she should add the name Chaba. I'm looking for a girl named Chaba for many years. I know what it is. And they got married. Anyway, so I added a name to her sister, and she has a date tonight. So I should at least get 50, but the thing is like this. So that is the power of letters, yeah, that they are able to receive the bracha. But it's true about that with everything. And I think maybe I told this chat. It was an incredible chat I had recently. We say poseaches yodecha must be at a simple level. That means Hashem opens His hands and He feeds everybody. But I said no. It means we open our hands. We open our hands and let go. When you let go, then basically what you're doing is you become a kli to accept all divine shefa, because the thing which, like, basically, listen to this, it says in the Medrash that enough man fell every day for 2,000 years. And that's like wild. Now it's man for 2,000. It must have been like 100 times Mount Everest. Like 2,000 years of food for 3 million people. That's a lot of food, right? Elamai, so what do you need so much for? Hashem was showing that every single day Hashem gives enough parnasa for 2,000 years. Right now, how much is 2,000 times 365? Figure that one out. I have a math teacher here. Okay, let's see. 2,000. Okay, it's 730,000. So that means in the Midbar, Hashem gave Klal Yisrael, 3 million people, enough food for 730,000 days. Okay, that means, and there were 2 a day, right? So there were 2 meals a day times 2. So basically, that's 1,460,000 meals. So like a person having difficulty with parnasa thinks, I can't get enough money for a meal today, but Hashem gives every day 1,460,000 days of parnasa times parnasa. So Elamai, but the thing is that you have to open up your hands and let go and accept the shefa to come in. But if you're thinking I have to do this, I have to do this, and I have to do this, the Chofetz says the more when you think you need to do a lot of ishtalos, okay, so let's see what we have to do, right? But if you do like the exact amount of ishtalos they meant to do, and the Rambam's son, his name was Avram, he wrote a book called The Mas B'Gvul Hashem. He said there's an avera to do too much ishtalos, and there's an avera to do too little ishtalos. If people think they have a lot of bitachon, they don't. So ishtalos, you have to do as much ishtalos as you feel you need to do, as according to your requirements and according to your needs and according to the job you have. If you're selling lemonade, you can't expect to make $200,000 a year selling lemonade on a street corner. But like if you get a branded lame, and then you think that you can make more money. So okay, so you have to do ishtalos, but that's the thing, that all of this chef is coming down to this world, and it's coming through the letters, and it's coming to us, yeah. And all we have to do is just like let go, and Hashem will just flood us with it, right? By the way, that's why on the tefillahs of Rosh Hashanah are very chashuv, because on Tefillah it's the only time the whole year we say psukim in the Torah, and those psukim, every letter of those pasuk, that pasuk is like bringing down incredible shefa. Oh, one more thing I have to tell you, this is like the most important thing. The most shefa comes down Friday afternoon by Adlagas Neros, right? For the entire week, for the whole family, all the shefa comes down, yeah, by Adlagas Neros. It says if a woman is calm, and I guess the husband should be calm too, it's let the wife be calm, when she lights the candles and she has the right kavanah, then like she's bringing down incredible shefa in Shemayim. So that's something really to keep in mind. Okay, all the shefa is coming down, and the question is, how do we connect to it, right? So one way we connect to it, it says just let it go. But another way we connect to it is just by learning the Torah and the light. We said, Ana nafshik sivihavis. All of the Or Hashem put into the Torah, which includes Mishle. It's also Tanakh. Yeah. So when we learn this properly and we think about it carefully, we try to understand what the Gra meant and try to understand a little bit what I'm saying. Yeah. Then, like, we're bringing tremendous shefa of HaKadosh Baruch Hu into our lives, and that's like really, really the best way to have bracha. I was at this Kol Toy's wedding last week, and a number of people came up to me and said, Rabbi Travis, we saw you on a video because I have a friend who does this lead pouring, Daniel Hall, his name is, and he's a very close friend of mine. And I went to him a few months ago, and he did it for me because my brother told me I should do it, and I felt so much better afterwards. Like my whole body was in pain. When I left, like I was like, and he told me, yeah, it's Yushami Minag to take off Ayin Hara, yeah, and my brother told me I should do it, so like whatever he told me, I'm very devoted to that, yeah, and he told me like exactly where my pain was and exactly this and exactly what was causing it. He showed me afterwards like all the Ayin Haras that were there, you know. So I did a video for him, and then like so he said a lot of people came up to me and said, was that really you or was it cyber fight thing? Anyway, I said yeah, that was really me. I believe it. So, but the thing is like it's a good thing to do, and like if a person is having difficulty, they should consider doing it. But it's not the tachlis. People are always running and looking for schools, do this and do this and do this and do this, and the best school is to learn Torah, right? Because that's what the Gemara is saying here. Is there's so much light of Hashem. When we talk about Chochmah and Bina, we mean Kivayachal Hashem Himself, and that's what it says. Anochi, Ana Nafshi Ksiva Yavis. Hashem says, I'm going to give you to me. The biggest bracha you could have in your life is Shechina, and Shechina, the Shechina is in the Torah, right? When you sit here and read these words and listen, and we learn the Gemara together, and you hear the shir, you're like bringing the Shechina onto yourself. That's like the biggest school. It's like 1,000 schools, right? 1,000 schools. I got 1,000. The Medrash Tanchuma says one Shabbos Suda is like 1,000 Tainesim, but it means that you eat your Shabbos Sudas with Hashem in mind, thinking about Hashem, quote Hashem. So people are doing schools, but all the mitzvahs we're already doing, Shabbos Sudas and learning Torah, davening, all these things, they're much, much bigger. Okay, it's a little bit late, but let's maybe try to do one more pasuk. I'm going to skip the next pasuk, and I'm going to skip it. Maybe we'll do it. We'll do the next. Let's just do it quickly. Dalit. Im tavakshenu kekesef ukat monim tichapsena. You have to look for Torah like kesef, like silver, and like buried treasure to search for it. Says the Gra, because al dara nevad, when it says tivakshena, it means that you lost it, right? Kamosh kasev taisi kesef oven b'kesh kesef la'arviach. A person doesn't know where they're going to make money. People go from place to place to try to make money. Yeah, which should be the same thing with Torah. So that's one thing. Go. Somebody told me who sometimes comes to this year, Travis, like, you want me to leave my house and come to another house to go to shir? Like, why should I do that? Just turn on the Zoom and like it's right there, So okay. So today you get like much more schar. Someone told me Rebbe Karlinsky, her shir used to have 50 people, now has 5 people. Was there a lawyer that told me like only one person comes to a shir? You stay at home, but because everyone's on their Zoom. Okay, look, it's a good thing. But as Mrs. Coltoy said, maybe we'll be back there next week. She said it's different when you're there. Like you can't like just turn it off and get a Coke or put your feet up. So it like the chip, that's what the Gemara is saying here. The chipus, the going, the traveling, the effort to do it is part of the kinyan of Torah, right? If you really want to integrate it, we spoke about listening carefully. We spoke about reading it. We spoke now about the tfuna of Bina, which really you have to work hard to go over it, reading it many times. And now we're saying also traveling, also being ready to go pick yourself up and go to somebody else's house. Tivakshenu kekesef, k'monim tichapsenu, derech dabra ha'matmen, b'makom yadua, is a buried treasure, and it's like very deep under the ground. Shemunach umutman b'sadeh b'makom ve'eni odea makomo mamish. That it's somewhere in this vicinity. So sarach l'chapes b'yadayim. Ubezeh shaychipus b'davar taman. Shetaman hu oavosav. Either he hit it or his father hit it. Okay. But Indian says the Gra, should connect Torah mitzvahs. Torah sarich levakish kesef. Torah you need to pursue like kesef. Uleil kamir lier. Medina la Medina la Torah. You don't never know where a place you're going to be successful to learn this. Bezeu introduction of kesef. Ukamat monim tchasenu anu mitzvahs. Achar shehem tzvunim v'svunim b'yado. Areis bozman. The Gra says this many times. Torah is all the time. You can learn all year long about Pesach or Shavuos or Sukkot, right? But a mitzvah is only relevant at the time. But also, lachas shlamid kvar. You know the lachas already. Akshav yichapes achreim dugmas matmonim k'moshkas lamala. Mitzvahs tisaben also. Okay. The inyanenu from what we're trying to get out today is that you need an effort. You know, if you really want to integrate Chochmah and Bina, right? Number one, you need to really listen carefully. Number two, you have to go over it again and read it again. Think about it. Think about your special understanding of it, and that will bring it into your hearts. And then we said you have to be ready to pursue it, to go to another country or another city, or today going to someone else's house like traveling on an airplane, because it's just so, like people just. Like the musagim today are very, very different than it once was. So that's it. It's the effort that you make that really makes it part of you. And once it's part of you, then it's a different experience. I remember Rebbe used to say, there's some Talmidei Chachamim, they have a lot of information, but you don't feel like it's part of them. They didn't really spend that time to integrate. He said Rav Shach, if you would cut his veins open, chas v'shalom, like Torah would come out. Like he made certain Gedolim, like Rav Steinemann, Rav Gershon Edelstein, many others, they make the Torah a part of who they are. I was just talking to someone yesterday, Rav Safrani. He's the Rav of 80 shuls. He's an active Rav of 80 shuls. Every night he goes to some of them. Shabbos he'll go to a community and go to 7, 8 shuls. He's an active Rav of 80 shuls. He's the head of the Beis Din of France. Yeah. He travels. He just got back from America. He travels regularly to South America, to Panama. He goes, France. He's a Rosh Kol and a Rosh Yeshiva, and he's written 50 songs. Like, how do you do that? How do you do that? And he doesn't make anything of himself. So he told me, he said, the sign of panimi of somebody who's l'shem shemaim is their sneas. They don't make a big deal. And I'll just finish with one story. I have to tell the story about Rav Safrani. Now we mention his name. So he once told me this confidentially. Probably he didn't tell any other people, so it's a chutzpah, I'm telling you. But he said when he first bought his apartment, his first apartment he bought in Bayou Bagan, how much, a 3-room apartment in Bayou Bagan, how much did it cost? What? What do you think? It was, I don't know, 40 years ago.
40?
Yeah.
Was much older.
Okay. It was $50,000, right? $50,000. Anyway, or maybe it was even cheaper than he sold it. Okay. Anyway, so he gets in the first night, and he hears banging on the wall, and then he hears singing. Na na. There was a guy next door who was pigua moach, a kid, and the whole night he would sing and bang on the wall, and they could hear it like very loud. Anyway, they went to Rabbi Yashin. And Rav said, well, it's not a mekaktos. Mekaktos means there's something wrong with the apartment. There's nothing wrong with the apartment. It's wrong with the guy next door, so you can't get your money back. So he said he was completely accepted that. And not one iota of tinus on people's soul. Anyway, he was in the Bayou Bagan for, 10, 15 years. And then he got offered a position here in Oaks. Now he has to sell the apartment. So what do? It's not a Bagan in the Mekach. You could sell it. You could do the same thing. So I'm not going to do the same thing. He said he advertised it. At that time, it was 50,000 for 45, 5,000. A guy comes and he put down $5,000. Said, I want to buy it. Anyway, 3 days later, the guy said, my kids just can't do it. Now, I'll be a locha. Once you put money down, that's a kinyan. Back out, he said, I'm not going to, you don't want it? I'm not going to sell it to you. That's it. Okay, anyway. 2 days later, he gets a phone call. Somebody who's going to buy the apartment. Who was it? Can you guess? Who would buy such an apartment?
So it doesn't hear.
Oh, very excellent, excellent. Right? A deaf woman called me, said, perfect apartment, $5,000 cheap. I don't hear anything. Right? Anyway, she said, I attribute all my success, he said, to that story. Right? Because for 15 years, can you imagine this? Like screaming at this all night. He said his father-in-law came to visit him, like, and he was sleeping. And like, what is this? No, this is the way we're living. That's what. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, he said he attributes his success to that story. But in any event, Lamaisa. But when I speak, I see like it really is part of him. He speaks really part of him, and we all want to get to that. When we judge on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, what does that mean? What does it mean that we're judged? Hashem goes into the deepest recesses of our hearts and like, what's going on there? And we want to say, like, have something good to show, right? The more Torah we have inside our hearts, right? That's where Hashem goes, and that's where the Shekhinah dwells. The main thing is, and Rav Sternbach has told me that many times, the main thing is not the Ma'aseh mitzvah. It's important to do the mitzvahs, like Rav Kahana used to call them cardiac Jews, Jews at heart. You can't be just a Jew at heart. But the Ma'aseh, once you're doing the actual Ma'aseh mitzvah, you're lighting Shabbos candles, but realize like all the bracha for the whole week is coming down now, right? If I take the next 5-10 minutes and I'm just like concentrated, try to like finish everything early, try to be as calm as possible, like you have such an opportunity for bracha there, yeah. And that's all in the lave, and that's the judgment. The judgment on Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. So Hashem enters our hearts and sees like really, really where we are. And sometimes the person doesn't know. The person can think he's doing great, and their lave is not makoko. It's not a question of how many things you do or how many chesed projects you get involved with, or how long you daven Shemona Esrei. I saw someone who wrote a country. He said there was a woman who said tell him 300 prakim of Tzelem a day. Right? That's said, but it's not. A woman can say one parak of Tzelem a day with tears, and really think about it. It's more than 300. Right? The Medrash says, "Elef l'cha Shlomo." Right? The pasuk says, Shlomo Melech decided one day he's going to bring 1,000 kabbalas, and nobody was allowed in the base of English that day. An ani snuck in, and he put like a little tiny mincha offering on his bath. And Hashem said, "Sorry, Shlomo, this is more precious to me than all the 1,000 kabbalas." So it's not a question of like how much we do, or how impressive it is, or how big it is, or how much this and that and the other. Hashem, that's not like interested. Hashem is interested in a person's lave. Did their avodas Hashem enter the lave? And we learned 3 things tonight. I think we learned number 1 is you have to listen carefully to the chachma and the part which is in the Rebbe's lave, and you have to connect to that with your own bit. That's number 1. Number 2 is reading it. When you see something, read it again. Right? We have a mitzvah of shnayim mikra v'echad targum. One of the reasons for that is you read it and you read it again and you read the targum. Then hopefully that you get a deeper understanding. That's number 2. And number 3, the willingness to put some effort in, right? To walk someone's house for a shiur, or even like drive to another neighborhood. Like that's really wow, to go, or maybe like even go to another city for a shiur or something. That's incredible. The Gemara says there was somebody called the Bar Beirav the Chad Yoma. He used to walk 3 months for 1 day of learning to get to the Yarchei Kala. And they called him the Bar Beirav the Chad Yoma. Anyway, so those 3 things, B'ez Hashem, we can work on it. We should all have Bracha, Tzlach, and Siyat D'Shmaya making it.